Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And that's why we're honored to have with us Ralph Manning. He is the co-founder and co-CEO of Coltala, a purpose-driven holding company. So we're going to talk all about purpose. How are you doing?
Great, Jeremy. Thank you. Thanks for having us on today.
Absolutely. So let's start with a little bit of your backstory. So give us a little bit of your backstory and what led you to launch Coltala.
Yeah, well, long story short, I mean, just a long history, right, of partnering with entrepreneurs and families, owner-operators of businesses to transition them from where they are today to where they need to go tomorrow. And that's another way of saying we acquire companies, and a lot of times we do it in partnership with sellers, meaning that they will keep a minority piece. Sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. But we found in Coltala, after over 20 years of doing that, we really, you learn a lot. And if you apply yourself, you can learn a lot in 20 years. And I will just say that the financial markets, capital markets, business environment, a lot of things changed dramatically in those 20 years. And so we woke up one day and realized that we had a great run, but markets change. Right. And we needed to change. We needed a new approach to take us through the next 20 years. And so we recapitalized and reorganized after several years of planning and work. And I can talk about that, but it wasn't just like we flip a switch and we're going to do something different. There was a lot of preparation that went into it. But my point is, it was informed by a lot of experience and then a lot of consultation with some really prominent business leaders people that everyone on your program would recognize that we had the opportunity to come across in life, and they really helped us think about that.
When you look at what makes you different, your process, it's around purpose. And so there's a lot of intention with what you do. And one of the things on your end is structure drives behavior. So talk about your process and what makes it different.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great question. Well, and so interestingly, during that 20 years, my partner and I, Edward Crawford, who's my co-founder and co-CEO, he was in the Peace Corps at a young age. I got roped into being on the board of a nonprofit, fairly prominent nonprofit here in the United States, not knowing that, and I was pretty young at the time as well. I didn't really do my due diligence because the mission was so compelling, right? But they were in trouble. And so we went through a turnaround that I ended up leading. And Edward has a similar story, but different. His was in Dominican Republic in the Peace Corps in coffee farming. But mine was in the world of abused and abandoned children, childcare, here in the United States. But anyway, long story short, I'm digressing, but long story short, we completed the turnaround. But during that process, there was a lot of lessons. And the number one lesson that came out of that, and lessons for me, but also lessons for all the folks I was working with, who are all highly educated people, but have a kind of a social worker mindset. They're very driven by purpose. It's all about purpose and mission for them, not about money. But we're going broke. So it had to be about money. You see the irony. And so we developed this concept of mission and margin they're actually mutually inclusive, not mutually exclusive. And what we mean by that, and what we learned is that, like, you when you run a better business, whether that's a nonprofit, that only means you don't pay taxes. You have all the same organizational challenges in a nonprofit that you do in a for-profit, right? One pays taxes, one doesn't. That's really the only difference, right? So that said, and you think of nonprofits as being more mission-driven. Well, that's true in some cases and not in others. But we found this concept that the better business that we ran, in this case, in our childcare business, nonprofit, the better business that we're in, the better quality of care. This is therapeutic foster care, the better quality of care we could provide. And the more kids we could care for. And when that light bulb went off, all of a sudden, everything changed. And the traction that we were able to achieve, the things that we were able to do were completely different when our people got out of this mindset that I can't be like that, I have to be like this. They don't compete, they actually complement mission and margin. So we apply that to our businesses. That's the purpose driven that comes out of all businesses have a mission or a purpose. Understanding what that is and knowing what it is and being resolute and true to that purpose, especially when you're acquiring a business from a founder or from a family, some cases, second generation. The stewardship responsibility that comes in line with that, from their perspective, matters a great deal. In some cases, even more than the price tag. They want to know that 10 years now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, their business has been taken care of the way they would have done it. Their people had the opportunity, that maybe more opportunity even than they would have had with them, that they were taken care of. They were always treated fairly and equitably, and those are very important things.
I think there's a lot of mystique around private equity. And so when you look at the process of what you're looking at for what makes sense for your portfolio, what are the things that you're really looking at?
So as you said, when you open, structure drives behavior. So we purposely structured Coltala very differently than a traditional private equity firm. We are a holding company. We have private capital, but we are built to acquire and invest and hold. We think in terms of decades, not in terms of years. And that's a very different approach, because when you think in longer terms, then you're willing to think about, it's like the difference between managing a business quarter to quarter if you're a public company, to making decisions with what's going to be best for the company in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now. And so having that mind, that changes, that informs your thinking in a very different way. So structure drives behavior. So we structured our company in a way that we don't have to sell on a timeline, which there's nothing wrong with that, apart from the fact that it does inform what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do as it relates to how you invest in and how you manage and how you own and operate a business, right? You manage a business that you're going to turn around and sell differently than you manage a business that you're going to own forever. And so when we're sitting with a potential partner, seller, family, owner, operator, it's a different conversation. And it starts there with the people and the purpose and how do they think about that, rather than just a conversation about profitability and margins, which are very important. But again, they complement, they're not exclusive to the conversation, they complement.
When you look at your experience with the turnaround and the nonprofit, does that factor in with some of the businesses too? In other words, the challenge of a turnaround and a long-term approach and the opportunity that could be there, but the immediate challenge presented? Or is it one of those where, hey, we want to see stability coming in and the turnaround should not play a factor?
Yeah, no, we don't. So just like I didn't go on that board, knowing that I was walking into a turnaround, we never knowingly invest in or acquire a company knowingly. No, I said knowingly. That's in a turnaround. And with all kidding aside, we know but that's a good segue. So our strategy is all around resourcing our businesses like they were Fortune 100 companies, and so. The only difference between a smaller, what we call medium-sized business, and like a Lockheed or a Boeing or you name a General Electric, is that those companies invest in their people, and a lot of small and mid-sized companies not nearly as much. And so I say to our management teams and teams that we are acquiring or about to acquire, often I say, Sam Walton had a saying that he would cite often, when he was talking to his people, his troops, he would say, ordinary people, and 99.99% of us are ordinary. Ordinary people can do extraordinary things with proper leadership. And proper leadership means development, opportunity, in creating that. And so we have been able to work with, we've been privileged to work with some of the most advantaged, advanced and sophisticated, I would say, successful management executives, gurus in the country to inform our thinking about what we call the Coltala Enterprise System, which is predicated on a system called the Danaher Business System, which comes from the Toyota production system. So there's a long line. And we're big believers in, we shouldn't think that we're so smart that we can just go create all of this stuff. It's already been created. It's already been optimized many times over by brilliant people. We should adopt it and try to master it first. And then if we can improve it, that'd be great. But let's start there. And so we've spent the last 8 years really building that. And so that what we're bringing to our businesses is purpose, right? And we're understanding that, we're approaching it from that end, but we're resourcing these missions and these companies that have a purpose that the founder or the family is important to them. Take this purpose, and then you inform it and embrace it with real resource on how you run a best-in-class business and what are those techniques, and they involve around kind of a 4-point plan, as we call it. It comes out of the DBS, Danaher Business System, which is arguably the most successful management system in the world, and that's not opinion. That's just based on their results over 40, almost 50 years now. People, plan, process, and performance. So you start with the people, right people, right seats, right culture, optimization around your people. It starts with people. If you don't have great people, or you don't have people that go to work every day and are highly engaged in their business, you don't have much, and that's a lot of businesses, by the way. So you start with people. You have to have people that are wrapped around the right plan. So we have a process for how we do planning, annual, 3-year strategy, people plan, and then process improvement is where it all is. I mean, there is no limit to the amount of process improvement that you can ever do in a business. And process is not bureaucracy, process is speed. And in the 21st century, speed, very important. So people, plan, and then it's perfecting processes, and in many cases in these small, mid-sized businesses, creating processes where they don't exist. They're in people's heads. Process is not a process if it's not written down, because if it's not written down, I can't teach you, Jeremy. And when you figure out how to improve it, then you can't teach it back to me. So having a standardized process in your business for everything is how you create scale. So people, plan, process, and then how do you measure that performance? So the 4 Ps are the drivers behind Coltala Enterprise System, and it is the engine that we take and we put into the businesses that we acquire and partner with, and it's a game changer.
How has this changed the way you lead and literally build being an acronym, your core values with your team? So talk about how this is helping you create, enhance, empower your own team.
Yeah. Well, people build businesses, right? And especially in this world we live in, we were about it earlier, you and I, just about how fast everything moves, technology, what you're able to do with technology that you couldn't do even a short time ago, right? So interestingly, the 21st century is an exponential world, and prior to really 2000, in that time frame roughly, we were a linear world. And I'll never forget a video that I watched of the CEO of Blockbuster standing on the stump under tremendous pressure as his stock was being just killed in the market. And Blockbuster had been a Wall Street darling forever, for many, many years, decade or more. And he said, we understand. He's in his 50s. He goes, we understand that movies are going to live stream, and we're working on that. 6 months later, he was in bankruptcy court because Netflix completely disintermediated his market, because it used to take 10 steps to walk across the room, but now you can do it in 3. In an exponential world, you can do it in 3. In a linear world, it took 10. And so we have to think like that. And so your question was around people and how do we think about that? Well, it's about continuous improvement and continuing education. Like every 4 or 5 years, you need to go back to school today. Because if you're doing your job every day and I'm doing my job and I'm going to work, there's no way I can keep up with what's going on the change in the world. It's happening too fast. So you need to do a timeout and you need to go do a deep dive to stay relevant. Otherwise, you will wake up, I will wake up, and we'll find ourselves irrelevant in terms of being able to keep up with what's going on in the world. So we believe in continuous improvement here at Coltala first, always, and then we push that down. And we push it into our companies and we have these kind of conversations and we hook them up with, continuing education opportunities and all kinds of things so that it's never a destination, it's a journey that you're on. And I was sitting with a professor one day and he was telling me, he said, what, he goes, by the way, in 1908, what do you think the life expectancy in this country? He goes, 1940. Well, it was about 60. Well, today, it's much higher. Whatever you can read different things, but it could be as much as 100 today. And so people are going to live longer. And so you've got to continue to. So that's how we do it. That's how we think about it.
Talk about community service because, obviously near and dear to your heart and your co-founders, but talk about community investment, working with nonprofits. How does that play in with the organization, with your team?
Well, we try to think about it like we're learning every day, all the time about how to do things better. And then so the opportunity to go into the nonprofit world is very much like, so for example, if I could go back in time, which was in 2004, if I knew then what I know now, wow, man, could we have gone faster? But I was learning on the job, Jeremy. I mean, literally. It was gut wrenching because we almost had to close the doors, and that was a 50-year organization. It was going to happen on my watch if I wasn't careful. So there was a lot of pressure there to make sure that didn't happen. And so we think about how do we take what we're learning in this environment, and that's a way that we can really add value. We go into these nonprofit organizations, and it's no different. Like I said earlier, the only difference is you don't pay taxes. But you've got the same challenges, the same problems that we have in our businesses. And so let's manage up and let's leverage what we're learning over here and take it over here and give it away. And that's the opportunity that we see, and we think it's very important.
As we wrap up, give me one thing that really excites you when you look at, just like we were talking about, how fast things are changing. That can be a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. And so you're growing. What puts a smile on your face when you look at what the future holds?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think what gets us excited, and I'm going through it right now because we're engaged with a business that we are very excited about. And so you look at this and you see the opportunity. I mean, it's like a white sheet it's like an artist with a canvas. You can see what's possible. And wow, that's exciting. And now if you have a toolbox and a playbook that works, and and then it's not so much like it was back in 2004 where you're going to work every day and you're trying to figure it out. You've already got the toolbox. You've got the opportunity. And now you can marry the two and apply one against the other. And that alchemy, that magic happens. And all of that is made possible to go faster with technology and speed. But one of the things you have to understand, one of the things that's really important, I'll end on this, but it's been taught to me, is that technology does not replace process. It does not replace understanding. You cannot, you have to first develop the process, have the understanding, and then apply the technology to leverage that and make it go faster in that order. If you try to supplant the first two steps, it ends up not working so well. And so this is something for everyone to keep in mind, that you can't take those steps away. You can do them differently. Even with AI, you'll find that if you take those two steps away, you'll get answers that may not exactly be right. Right. And now you're missing your target. And there's been lots of examples of that have already happened with AI. So there's an old saying, there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch. Do the work and do the hard work and you'll get there. But you can get there faster today. And just know that how fast you can get there, because like the Blockbuster CEO, if we don't think like 21st century thinkers, then we'll wake up and we'll get surprised like he did.
Yeah.
Don't want that to happen. So yeah.
Well, where do we go now to carry this conversation forward? So website, social media, where do we go to learn more about Coltala?
Yeah, well, we're very active on LinkedIn, and just go to Coltala, C-O-L, Colt like a horse, and A-L-A, Coltala. And then on our website, it's Coltala.com. We have a lot of books on our website, by the way, a number of books that I highly recommend that will reinforce kind of what I've been talking about today. In fact, we have a great intern program every year, summer intern program. We have interns that come from some of the leading business schools around the country, and they go deep on these books. And so they're doing that right now. They're doing their reading, and so there's a lot of good stuff out there on the website. If you're interested in learning more about this line of thinking, it's all out there for you to go see.
Well, Ralph Manning, co-founder and co-CEO of Coltala, thank you for all you and your amazing team do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Jeremy, thank you. Greatly appreciate. Talk soon.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.